Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Board of Supervisors regular meeting for Monday, February 5th. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moment of silence. Thank you. At this time, before we adopt the agenda, we do have the one addendum item that we need to vote on first.
But it doesn't require a vote, I don't think.
The document.
Madam Chair, are you just confirming that the addition of the draft resolution under a standing and announced agenda item, which was, I believe, H3, General Assembly update, there was added after the dissemination of the agenda, a draft resolution related to House Bill 800. And I think the idea there is it's been added late, and so any action taken on it would require unanimous vote. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Make a motion to, okay.
Go ahead.
May I make a suggestion real quick?
Sure.
I think there's a couple of folks here to receive framed resolutions, and I think they need to be on their way. So if we could move up the consent agenda and that presentation to before the school report by the superintendent, that would be very helpful. So
I think it's fine.
that's just a motion to move E, the consent agenda, up ahead of C, presentation.
Is that to adopt the agenda as you so meant?
With that change, yes, sir.
I'll
That's my
second.
motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All
Consent
right, so
agenda's
we're going
before.
into the consent agenda, everyone.
Madam Chair, I'll move that we adopt the consent agenda as presented and noticed on board docs.
Thank you.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 No opposed. All right.
Well, with that, you'll move right into presentations of those two items.
I do believe we're going to start with Mr. Glenny.
Sounds good. So I'll just read this aloud for the benefit of everyone here. This is a resolution of appreciation for Rappahannock County Fire Levy Board member W. Page Glenny. Whereas during his tenure, whereas W. Page Glenny served the citizens of Rappahannock County for over 8 years as a member of the Rappahannock County Fire Levy Board, and whereas during his tenure on the Fire Levy Board, he guided the body serving as its chair, and whereas he sacrificed countless hours as a volunteer for the betterment of the Rappahannock County citizens in the volunteer fire and rescue system, and whereas his support for the citizens of the county through his analytical review of fire and rescue systems costs helped to provide more structured processes, including development of the Fire and Rescue EMS Service Agreement. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors extends its sincerest thanks to W. Page Glenny for his service on the Rappahannock County Fire Levy Board and wishes him all the best in his future endeavors. Be it further resolved that this resolution be spread across the minutes of the Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors for all its citizens to reflect upon the service and accomplishments of this dedicated public servant, adopted this 5th day of February 2024. Oh, wow. and commending the service of Ronald L. Frazier as a member of the Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors. Whereas on December 31st, 2023, the Honorable Ronald L. Frazier completed his tenure on the Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors, having served as the Jackson District Supervisor since January 1st, 1996. And whereas in its position on this board, Mr. Frazier served his community with intelligence, dedication, compassion, and commitment during his 28 years on this board. And whereas during his tenure on this board, he held appointments to a number of boards, committees, and commissions, including the Planning Commission, the Broadband Authority, the Virginia Career Works Piedmont, and Public Safety Committee, always representing his constituents with tenacity. And throughout his term on the board, Mr. Frazier was a tireless worker for his constituents in the Jackson District, while also being dedicated to managing land use implications affecting the quality of life for all county citizens. And whereas Mr. Frazier served with unwavering dedication and with the best interests of the citizens at heart, always ensuring varied perspectives were considered. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of the Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors extend their sincerest gratitude to the Honorable Ronald L. Frazier and wish him all the best in his future endeavors. Be it further resolved that this resolution be spread across the minutes of the Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors so all citizens may reflect upon the service and accomplishments of this dedicated public servant. Thank you, Mr. Frazier.
Too far. You guys keepsake as well, sir.
Wow.
I wasn't expecting that. Thank you so much.
I think you're probably out here.
I actually do something like that. Well, sit in it.
That's a great picture.
Looks good.
Yeah, so that's much for that tennis.
Now you know what we thought we were sitting on the bench.
Oh, I know the benches are right. Thank you so much.
You're not going to take it now?
We're going to haul it?
Okay.
It's in a car. Okay. All right. Now we're moving into presentations.
Yes.
Okay. Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Grimsley.
Madam Chair, members of the board, just a point of personal privilege really quickly. I just want to extend my thanks as well to Mr. Ron Frazier and Mr. Page Glenny, both of whom I've known many years and have also they have asked great questions of the school and pushed for transparency and actually made us a better organization for that. So I do appreciate that. Thank you for your service. All right, well, Panther Nation has been very busy. It is hard to believe we are already at this point in the year. I hope you are able to see some of the very adorable pictures of our young elementary students celebrating the 100th and 101st days of school this week. Each day dressing as either a 100-year-old person or as a Dalmatian for the theme of 101 Dalmatians. It was a lot of fun. This last month has been truly remarkable at RCPS, even with the very strange winter weather pattern that greeted us shortly after holiday break. Even still, our Panthers were able to achieve great things, including using this concept to conduct an Arctic blast experiment in our STEAM lab with Mrs. Bethany Bostic and understanding how animal adaptations of those creatures who inhabit areas with extreme cold climates stay warm and survive. The culinary creativity at the schools continues to impress with increased scratch-based meals and student engagement in menu choices. This month, RCES students named the scratch-based pizza as Students' Choice, while RCHS chose steak and cheese subs with all the fixings. It has been really fantastic to witness such engagement and participation in school meals. Last week, RCHS celebrated its nomination for Mr. Scott Stevens as the 2024 RCPS Teacher of the Year. Mr. Stevens has a long-standing track record of improving student outcomes, closing achievement gaps, and achieving continuously high pass rates on mathematics SOL tests, all the while fostering curiosity and creativity in his students. Mr. Stevens will go on to participate in the statewide competition for Teacher of the Year. We wish him the best of luck. To add to the accolades of success, the RCHS Scholastic Bowl team finished as runners-up in the district super regional tournament on January 27th, qualifying the team for the state championship match on February 24th. Congratulations to Ruth Cassette, who is recognized as first team All-District, and Najet Rayan, who was named second team All-District. We have another team who sealed their spot at states this season. Our rap wrestlers performed extremely well at regionals this weekend with 4 grapplers placing in their respective weight classes. Congratulations to Gerardo Flores, Damian Brown, Silas Horton, and William Newman for placing and qualifying the team for states. Our CES students participated in a school-wide spelling bee this month, showcasing their talents in phonological awareness and literacy. Each class participated in their own spelling bees and sent the grade level winners on to the school-wide tournament. Following multiple rounds, 3 finalists emerged. Colin Grimes in 5th grade won first place. Lila Choi, 6th grade, won second. And Braden Compton, 7th grade, won third. And that winning word, Chuck, was drawers. I finally got it. Speaking of literacy, we hope you will join us for our next family engagement night, taking place at the elementary school on February 28th from 5:30 to 7:30. There will be a Dr. Seuss themed event, and there will be food, treats, raffle prizes, games, and lots of educational activities. We would love to have you join us and participate in the activities, as well as to visit with our families and learn more about the experiences in school. These events are very well attended, so we hope you will come. Also, February is Black History Month. In addition to the many activities, essay contests, art projects, and book challenges going on in the schools, we would love to invite you all to a very special assembly at the high school on Friday, February 23rd at 9:55 a.m. The Scrabble School will be showing a very special documentary called Places of Hope and Aspiration, Rosenwald Schools in Rappahannock County. If you would like to join us, please contact either myself or Principal Seward, and to ensure we reserve your seat. Also, Behind the Wheel is now open for the spring, and we do have spots available for RCPS students, homeschool students, and independent private school students. The cost for RCPS students is $50 and $250 for non-RCPS enrolled students. If interested, please contact Elizabeth Fox, our Behind the Wheel coordinator. As you can see, we have so many great things going on in our small, mighty school system, and we thank you all for all you do to continue to support our students and staff. We look forward to the joint School Board of Supervisors meeting next week to further discuss our instructional and operational needs and challenges as we develop the fiscal year 25 school budget. As always, thank you for your questions, as well as providing the opportunity to clarify any areas of concern. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Speaking of the fiscal year 25 budget, I wonder if you could speak to your current estimate of the school system's average daily membership, which I believe is a number that drives, at least in part, state funding, and when you will lock that number in, and if you currently have an idea of where that number might end up and how it will affect the state contribution to our school system.
Sure. So, of course, the average daily membership, or ADM, the higher that number is, the more state money you receive. Currently, we're looking at a state projection of 728 for our ADM, whereas it was projected at 667 last year. So that's a very good estimate, and that's what we're building on right now. We will not lock that in until March 31st. So that's a pretty safe bet to use that number.
Okay, so that suggests potentially a substantial increase in revenue. And given the difference between what you estimated in the last fiscal year for your average daily membership and what you're anticipating now, is there a rule that you follow in terms of determining whether expenses also track equally with increased revenue? Or would it be a scenario where the increased revenue driven by the higher ADM means that our local contribution, no matter what, would be less? All other
Understood.
things being
Great
equal.
question, great question. So if it were that simple. So your expenses will track with what is required from the state each year, and there are a lot of changes that are being prescribed and for the standards of quality. So we are watching those. That may drive expenses a little higher for certain SOQ-funded positions. For instance, counselors, the number of school counselors you have to have per so many students. English language learners, there's some estimated costs associated with that. And then the big driver, what are they going to do with teacher compensation?
Okay.
And then health insurance. So a lot of those things we don't have our arms around just yet. And also the funding streams change a little bit. In the governor's proposed budget, you may see an increase in certain areas, but then you see the removal of like the food and grocery tax supplement gone. So that was revenue that we had anticipated based on our ADM before, no longer here now. So we're going to do our best to reconcile the need and then show you what, the expenditures are projected to be. And then here's what revenues we can expect.
But the absolute number of students looks like it's maybe in the ballpark of 8 to 10% in terms of overall increase of headcount.
Correct.
So-
Yes.
I want to clarify something. So your actual ADM in the current school year, the budgets, state budget's based on 728-ish.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Correct.
And so the forward estimate is 728.
Correct.
And so when we build a budget, we estimate what the ADM will be. And then we build a budget around that. We get paid for what the ADM actually is. And so it gets right-sized, so to say, by the state. And that's why we might end up having supplemental appropriations when we actually learn what it really will
Correct.
be. So it looks like the state is planning for us to be flat. We think we'll probably be flat in student population.
Correct. Just about the same as this current year is what we're basing at 728. If anything, maybe a little bit higher, but it's hard to tell at this point.
Okay, and last related question, of that significantly increased ADM number, within that total, how many of those seats are occupied by out-of-county students who are still attending school in Rappahannock County because of a parent in local government or in the school system?
Sure, 57.
57. And I had asked you in a prior meeting whether there was tuition revenue tied to those 57 students, and the answer was no, and the reason is because they are, in all cases, children of Rappahannock County landowners or county employees.
Correct.
But notably, that 57 number is still important because it drives your ADM, which also drives state funding.
Correct.
Is that a correct understanding
Yes, it does.
of why it's beneficial?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And it's also beneficial to note that those non-resident students that are on waiver do have to apply every year, have to maintain good standing, and we must have slots already in the class for them. We had to deny many applications, especially for our earlier primary grades, because we just did not have room, and we do not want to make it a scenario where we have to drive up staffing to accommodate our non-residents. So that's why that policy is set up that way.
Okay, thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
I don't know if you can answer this for me or not, but I have heard that some of our citizens here that are first due in jails or sheriff's office or whatever during bad weather are having trouble finding slots for children if they have to do it quickly. Do you have any insight on, it seems to me we've got a lot of kids on the way, which may be a good thing, I don't know, but if you could help me with that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so we have seen a large boom in our under 5 population. I know CCLC can speak to that much more clearly than I can, but we do have a meeting, DSS, Gail Crooks and I, and Lisa Payne-Wells. There is an expansion of the child care subsidy coming, and there are a lot of different funding streams that we hold those slots for, whether it be VPI, your Virginia Preschool Initiative slots, Mixed Delivery, Preschool Development Grant, and CCA. So maintaining that, having room for the kids with those funding streams. But what if we got creative on where the space is, whether it's at the school but funded through CCLC C stream or VPI there, or, so we're trying to get creative in anticipation of this expansion, because it is an issue. Yes, we don't have enough providers for early childcare, so it is something we're very actively engaging in right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gibson.
All right, Company 4 monthly updates.
Good afternoon. I'm Dave Bailey, President of Company 4, and I wanted to add my congratulations and thanks to Mr. Frazier and Mr. Glennie for their service. So for February calls, we had 16 EMS calls. We had 3 responses on those, 5 fire calls, and 2 responses on those. Our membership is currently, I'm saying approximately 35. I need to get the status on a couple of new members. We're over 30, but I think we're right at 35 on membership. Training and qualifications. 7 members successfully completed the EMR training, which is Emergency Medical Responder. Of those 7, 5 have been released as providers. The remaining 2 have been traveling, but should be released very soon once they're able to go through the release process. All 7 of our EMR trainees have enrolled in the upcoming EMT class, scheduled to start on February 13th at Flint Hill. And so we're looking forward to adding those members as emergency responders for the medical side. Vehicle apparatus status, Company 4 utility truck in coordination with the County Office of Emergency Management. We have gotten that truck licensed as an EMS response non-transport vehicle. So EMRs, once released, or EMTs, would be able to use that truck, but it's not qualified to transport patients. It's just a response vehicle. But we were excited about getting that truck licensed as such. We have installation of the new pump on Company 4's brush truck. That should be completed this week, perhaps today. The process was actually completed, but there was one valve that was leaking, so the person's coming back to fix that valve. But we look forward to getting that truck back into service within the next few days. And then finally, our bylaws. It's been a long process. The bylaws committee's been working on that for a while. They've been going through a thorough cover-to-cover rewrite of the bylaws to get them more in line with current administrative and operational practices. This week, we will begin the process of reviewing, collecting comments, and adopting the proposed bylaws in coordination with the membership. To date, it's been just the bylaws committee that's been working on that, but we look forward to getting those bylaws in place and really soon, I would say within the next couple of months. That's my update, and I'm glad to take any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Get confused. We'll just do no appointments. There you go. Oh, you got it. Mr. Nesmith, I almost forgot you.
Hey, that's okay with me?
No, come on up.
And there was a printed report that I placed in front of your sponsor if you want to follow along with what he's about to say.
All right, thank you, Chairman Donahue and board members for letting me be here today. And I'd like to congratulate Mr. Frazier and the other recognized person. I can't forget your name. Can't remember your name, but thank you for your service too. And Mr. Frazier, I've really enjoyed working with you for the 10 years I've been here, and look forward to hearing from you in the future. Like you said you had a few things for me, so that's good. Excuse me. In January, you might remember, we had our first significant snow event in about 2 years, and I believe our crews did a great job in their response to the event. Whenever we have an event like that, it typically involves at least a day of prep in advance, especially if we were pre-treat. It also takes a couple of days post-event to get equipment back in condition and deal with post-event cleanup issues. So it's usually a pretty big dent in our work schedules when we do get these types of events. This one was a 2 or 3 day event. And also, we have also gotten several events that where we had freezing conditions up on Thornton Gap and Chester Gap, where we had to respond to some minor events, but they're not minor if you live in Chester Gap or up in Thornton Gap area. So we're doing that on a fairly frequent basis. We are beginning the process for updating the secondary 6-year plan for the next for FY 25 through 30. We have scheduled an initial meeting with Mr. Curry to discuss any potential additions. And we currently have phase 2 of Kaiser Run Road scheduled for construction this summer. So we continue to get, knock these roads off a year at a time, and hopefully if we can ever get more money, we can get more done. The paving program for last year was completed, and we paved 13.03 miles of road with plant mix and 8.16 miles with surface treatment for a total of 21.19 miles. We are currently preparing for this year's paving program to begin in the spring. We plan on paving 9.10 miles with plant mix and 9.72 miles with surface treatment. And also, we're going to add 2 feet of paved shoulders to Route 522 north of 211, so it's a little over 7 miles of paved shoulders. So
Let me interrupt real quick.
Sure.
The paving plan and schedule are attached to this agenda item on board docs for those who are curious.
Okay. And and those that paving is coming out of our the HSIP funding. That's a federal funded project. The shoulder paving, I mean. So we look forward to getting that done. And a lot of y'all drive 229. I'm sure we're also adding paved shoulders to 229 in Culpeper as well. We've had several traffic engineering items we are looking at, the request of the Mr. Curry and the Public Safety Committee. The most notable being a review of the number of instances of wrong-way drivers at various locations on Route 211. We're comparing that information with data we received from other adjacent counties with 4-lane divided highways, and we'll report back to the Public Safety Committee with our findings and recommendations. We look to have that hopefully very soon. We just wanted to make sure that, I know there was a frequency of instances in Rappahannock County, and wanted to see if we were having similar instances in Culpeper and Fauquier counties, just to sort of see how big the problem was. So hopefully we'll have that information and some recommendations back here shortly. Another item that we were asked to look at was Route 231 and the crash rates since the centerline rumble strips were installed several years ago. And we did study the crashes before the rumble strips were installed and the crashes after. And we did notice that if you take out the animal-related crashes, there was a 33% reduction in overall crashes. That translated to 57% reduction in fixed off-road crashes and a 67% reduction in head-on crashes. However, there was a 75% increase in animal-related crashes. And I'm not sure how that account for that. Mr. Curry had an opinion that possibly it attracted animals, the rumble strips, which you could take that.
I think the animals are always there.
Yeah.
It's just when they're standing on the side of the road and hear a loud noise, they might move.
Right. So, so basically, with the fact that if you take out the non-animal related crashes, there was a reduction in overall crashes. So that's obviously a good thing, and it's the intent of that type of project. So we didn't have any additional comments based on that.
Mr. Nesbitt, just to provide context for that information you gathered related to Route 231, the question came from a member of Company 7 related to emergency vehicles having a wide berth, and the fact that with that rumble strip down the center line and no shoulder, oftentimes emergency vehicles, when they're on 211, are having to basically ride the rumble strip, or even worse, ride in the opposite lane. So I just want to be clear that that was a context for the request. It wasn't us requesting you to provide data on whether the rumble strips themselves were working.
Okay, and since we do have a ongoing HSIP program, which everybody, HSIP is Highway Safety Improvement Program. It's a federal funded program that we have. I would like to see 231 included in future shoulder paving operations, along with other 2-lane primary routes we have around the residency. So I don't have the power or authority to make it happen, but I can certainly request that it be looked at for that purpose. The next on my, we were asked that there were several locations around the county where secondary roads approaching primary routes. There were some concerns about being able to make those approaches to the stop sign and to enter and exit those road intersections safely, and we were asked to look at those. So we are doing that, looking at that with our district traffic engineer, and we'll have that report back here shortly in the next few weeks. We have been invited to attend the Sperryville community meeting, which is I think tomorrow night at the was it the base?
Base at Blue Ridge.
The
at
base
7.
at Blue Ridge, yeah. So we're planning on being there, and we'll try to be prepared to answer and provide whatever guidance we can at that meeting. I know it's an important topic. And a couple other things. We've worked recently. Mr. Curry submitted an permit application for the county to install several permanently mounted radar speed feedback signs in various locations around the county. And I think you're in the process of getting those installed, phasing those in. Just as a related note, there is legislation moving through the state legislative bodies this year to give localities and law enforcement agencies the authority to install photo speed enforcement equipment along state maintained routes. If approved, this equipment would be funded, installed, and maintained by the locality or agency. As I did last year, I've put together an end of year report for 23, and I hope to have that to you in the next few weeks. That's what I have for today, and I'm open to answer any questions anyone may have.
I did want to just say thank you. I recently sent a very comprehensive mile marker by mile marker list of items to look at both in Gid Brown Hollow and Harris Hollow to Mr. Jenkins in your local office. And I just want to say to him and to you, thank you for your attention to that. Some of those items have already been checked off. So good. Thank you. For, the response is always incredible whenever we ask for support. So
good, thank you for that.
I did want to say thank you too for your hard work, and I know many crews around the clock hard work during the recent snow events that we had as well. I thought that went relatively well considering the very, very cold temperatures and the amount of weather that we had over those days.
Well, thank you. I'll be sure to pass that on to them.
And then one thing that I haven't brought up, but I've seen and I've heard about from law enforcement is, we rely on trucking in Rappahannock County because we are such a remote county, and it's really the only way that people can get products into our county. But unfortunately, sometimes large trucks end up where they shouldn't be. And I know we took care of this on River Street in Sperryville, and I know there was recently an occasion, I saw it, I was driving home from work, and I'm coming through Woodville, and an 18-wheeler turns down Holland Road in the dark of night, and I just saw that, and I thought, that is not going to end well. And it didn't. He ended up getting back in there, and his load got off kilter, and they had to call a special wrecker to pull him out. And I guess in the age of GPS, people plug in their destination and they get coordinates, and that looks good, and they're on their way. So is there any way that we can get some of these places excluded, or is there a way and maybe Mr. Curry knows, to make sure that the information that people get when they're bringing those large vehicles through our county is compatible with them safely getting through our county, and not ending up in a situation like that poor truck driver on Holland Road.
Well, I certainly understand the concern. I'm not sure what role VDOT plays in that. I know, typically, I'm assuming that's a dead-end road?
No.
It's a very windy, small,
Right.
partially gravel country road.
522 to 231.
It was frightening to see them pull in, and I thought, well, maybe they know the road and they're gonna turn around in the graveyard, but that was apparently not the case. So, I mean, anything we can do, I think, to keep, we rely on these vehicles, we want them to come, but we want them to be in safe places for them as well as for us.
Well, if that's an issue that happens frequently enough, in a certain location, we can certainly try to address it. But if it's a one-off and somebody just went somewhere he shouldn't have, I don't know how we can control that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Nesbitt.
You're welcome.
So I have all things Chester Gap typically when it comes to roads. HB 74 and Senate Bill 644 is thinking about using some of the funds for the 6-year rural rustic to be on, as well on dirt roads, not just paved, or turning dirt roads into paved roads. And there's one limitation or expectation, which is at least 50 cars a day, which I can't imagine any one road in Chester Gap that gets 50 cars a day that's still dirt. Is there any way, I don't know who I haven't contacted anybody at the House or the Senate about this, but 50 seems like a large number. Somebody told me this was actually targeting Loudoun County, which I'd much rather target Chester Gap if we could.
Well, the bill I think you're referring to was sponsored by the new representative or delegate from Loudoun County.
I have included information on this bill in your bills of interest. Basically, what it does is, right now for the secondary road program, this board generally identifies unpaved roads that you want to commit allotted funding to hard surface them. But you can't dedicate those funds to just improve the condition of the gravel road. And so what the bill seeks to do is allow a board to designate a unpaved road to be improved, but not hard surfaced. That would not do anything for private roads, which are everywhere in Chester Gap. So this would only be for public roads. For example, North Pose has been very steadfast against hard surfacing the road, but they might be supportive of improving the gravel road.
I think you're right. I think he's right there. Okay, and the last thing is, we talked about the bridge weight limits and the signage going up. I'm wondering, and I haven't looked in our manual or online or anything, but is there a staged approach where the sign goes up with a certain weight and then 1 year later another sign goes up with a certain weight and another year it's okay, got to replace the bridge? How does that?
Well, our bridges are inspected, I think, every other year. And they're based on the most recent inspection, or, the weight limits, if there is a weight limit. Now, if they do a subsequent follow-up inspection and the weight limit, there's something that's deteriorated further, and they have to reduce the weight limit, then, another sign they'll change out the signs to reflect that changed condition.
I assume there's at some point that you just say you can't cross.
At some point, if it gets to that, yes.
Okay.
And then,
But there are regional bridge funds to resolve those issues.
yes, we have, there's funds to do that. And if it's a dead-end road where no one can get in and out, then it's more of a priority than if it's if there's alternate ways to get in.
Okay. Anybody else? We always appreciate you coming. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
I would say
Appreciate it.
VDOT provided our dispatch center all of the rated bridges so that that information could be included in their computer-aided dispatch as well as the map book. So appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Mark. See you tomorrow.
All right. Be moving into public comment. At this point, anyone wishing to speak, please raise your hand, give us your name and your district, and I'm going to try to hold this stuff 5 minutes max per person, please. Absolutely.
Excuse me. Ron Frazier, I believe I live in Jackson District. And I'd like to, again, thank the board for the very wonderful thing that you did and your presentation today for me, and I do appreciate it. But really, it was the people of Jackson District that, wanted me to represent them all those years, and I appreciate that most of all. I'm going to have to leave, and again, I appreciate the board adjusting their schedule for us that do have to leave. But later in front of you, you have this addendum item, the resolution to oppose, I believe it's House Bill 800 and Senate Bill 713. And I really think you should. And I think that anyone that tries the argument that if you're opposed to this bill, that you're opposed to broadband, or that you hate children, there's nothing there. That dog won't hunt. When I sat here on the board, all I wanted, and when we look at these programs, this project was transparency, truth, and facts. And we couldn't get that. And now here we are 2 years or more into the program, and we see where they don't have the money to do it. They never had the money in there to do it. And they're trying some other mechanism to get the ratepayers for the, REC and the other electric co-ops to pay for it. And it's wrong. So I just would like to add my little 2 cents to it, that a vote against that resolution today will be seen as a vote for higher electric bills. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. In the 28 years that he sat on at that table, very few times I spoke, but this issue that he just talked about is
For the benefit of everybody here, if you can say who you are.
Kathy Frazier, Jackson District. Sorry. I had that on my paper, but hadn't looked down at it. Anyway, I want to say thank you to each one of you for your service to the county. It's not an easy job. I know it. He knows it. Also want to express my support for the resolution before you today that opposes House Bill 800 and Senate Bill 713, and any variations that may come up that passes the cost of this broadband infrastructure build out onto Rappahannock Electric ratepayers. All points, failure to develop a true cost estimate and a reasonably accurate body application is not the taxpayer's fault. Whether intentional or not, All Point Broadband submitted a bid for which they cannot deliver. That's not my fault. And as a matter of fact, this project will not benefit me or my family, as I am outside the serviced areas. Yet I will receive the same rate increase that those who are using the All Points broadband service will. So please vote yes for today's resolution that opposes the 2 bills. In no way, and this is some of what Ron said, in no way does it suggest I am opposed to fiber broadband in the county. So he said a lot of this other stuff. So anyway, just vote. Vote in support of the bill, resolution.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is Ray Bach. I'm in Piedmont District. I wrote a letter to the editor concerning an issue that we're concerned about in the area. And I just want to read a paragraph or two of it, and then that'll be it. I think I sent copies to each of you this morning. As residents of Sperryville, we participated in hearings and discussions regarding the zoning of a property on Woodward Road. Road access was an issue as Woodward Road on one side of the property is narrow, partly one-lane gravel, and has bottlenecks at both ends. Fortunately, a right-of-way ordinance exists that precludes subdivision unless there's a 50-foot right-of-way from the subdivision to the main highway. Woodward Road doesn't qualify, and at the end of the zoning process, it's clear that any subdivision developed on the property would have to be onto Route 11, have access to Route 11, and therefore would not add to the traffic on Woodward Road. I've actually had an incident where I had to back down the hill on Woodward Road because of oncoming traffic. 2.5 years later, so this was 2.5 years ago. 2.5 years later, we are learning that a subdivision application for 3 lots on Woodward Road was approved in error by county staff, and more recently, the zoning administrator issued a letter of determination to allow even more. This has all been done under the radar, with no public notice, no opportunity for public comment. An adjacent landowner has appealed the flawed determination to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and a hearing is set for February 28th. So what we ask is that this the appeal be allowed to take place with the Board of Zoning Appeals on February 28th, and in full transparency. This is my complaint. There was no transparency in the whole issue, and maybe this discussion would have taken sooner. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, sir.
See you around.
Good afternoon, Deacons, Stonewall District. I missed last month's meeting, and I wanted to welcome Ms. Comer and to the board and challenge her, as I challenged Mr. Carney, to avoid the gravitational pull towards the majority and vote with an independent mind, and welcome. And secondly, I'm here to also in support of the resolution. I urge all of you to vote for this resolution. And Mrs. Fraser brought up a good point about any iterations of this in the future. So both HB 800 and I did know about the Senate bill, but in total opposition to those. A lot of us in this county are on fixed income after a long time career. And there's only so many budget items that you can cut to fund these things. And it sounds like a very substantial increase in utility rates. So I urge you to vote yes for this resolution and no for HB 800. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Damaris Miller, Hampton District. I'm also speaking about the resolution. I am strongly in support of this resolution. Many of you will remember that many voices, mine among them, in the beginning of this APB debacle, said they're promising things they cannot deliver. They cannot deliver on time. They cannot deliver on the kind of budget they're talking about, and this is going to be a bad deal for the county. That being said, you ignored the advice of people who know a great deal more about it than I do. We have some excellent, excellent experts in this county, both on contracting and on managing large projects. And anyone who has lived here and driven around and knows the topography and understands what they were trying to do on poles with fiber optic knew that it could not be done under the circumstances that they were suggesting they could. Now that we have and are stuck with this, there are those in the state and the legislature who want to stick all of the ratepayers in the REC with the bill for what APB should have figured out in the first place. My neighbors and I are angry, and we strongly oppose this legislation. We feel powerless. You are the only voices that can speak for us, because we speak to our representatives who already oppose the bill. But you speak to a broader group of representatives. Please strongly oppose this bill in the House and the Senate. We do not want APB to bill us through our electric bills for a service we will never receive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Afternoon. I'm Sally Haynes, Piedmont District. And I'm here to comment, as Ray did, on item G2, which the zoning and subdivision ordinance and amendment, which relates primarily to changing the right-of-way amendments that we have. I'm sorry that Ron's left because there was a rezoning 2.5 years ago. And at the end of that process, in regard to these ordinances that are being considered now, he said, who in their right minds would get rid of these ordinances? And I too question getting rid of the ordinances or getting rid of the right-of-way provisions. Concurrent with a series of staff recommendations for the board to amend or eliminate the right-of-way ordinances, the zoning administrator issued a determination that these ordinances aren't enforceable and won't be enforced. This was in response to a request from a developer, Mount Airy, and regarded a particular property. It was produced and issued with no notice, either to adjacent landowners or the public, no public hearing, no opportunity for public comment. It's quite irregular to make such a significant and far-reaching determination out of the public eye, and that has set off alarms. In addition to being issued surreptitiously, it is poorly construed, in my opinion, and without sound legal foundation. And this is important. It applies not just to one property, but to the entire county. Many of us citizens are convinced the ordinances are vital protection for safety on back roads and to protect us from development, completely changing the county from rural and scenic to another version of Clevenger's Corner. I do not desire to spend my time on a zoning appeal, but I felt forced to do so. I think the determination was unsound and cannot be allowed to stand. I understand that the board can revise these ordinances as it desires at any time and regardless of the outcome of the appeal. However, I think the appeal will produce arguments of interest and provide the opportunity for public input that was negated in the way that this determination was solicited and issued. I believe the board will want to hear what people have to say and hear it before marching too far down the road with revisions. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sally.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Mark Anderson from the Piedmont District. Part of my misspent youth at the University of Washington, Mr. Whitson, was spent in acquiring an economics degree. And I will boil that down to about a minute for you that may be of use in this resolution you're considering. When there's an unforeseen cost that develops in a contract, this is pretty axiomatic. Somebody ends up having to pay it. And what I see going on in Richmond, maybe you do, is there's a contest between the internet service provider and the utilities as to who's going to wear the hat, pay this cost. It's not fair, it's there, but it isn't going to go away. I think if we all had our choice, we'd stick the ISP with it, just on general principles. But they may have a better case than the utility does for who actually failed to do the due diligence or whatever when they prepared the costing on this contract. We don't know, and we're not going to know. But I think the rational thing to do right now is to approve this resolution and tell the legislature that we don't like the idea that a large percentage of our county residents, our ratepayers, are going to get a bill for something they're not going to use and not going to receive. So I think that's the smartest thing we could do at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Nancy Freeman, and I just want to say I'm real thankful to have Christine as my supervisor, my representative. Thank all of you for your service. I'll simply put it just as Mr. Frazier, Ms. Miller, Mr. Dean, and I didn't get this gentleman's name right here.
Anderson.
Mr. Anderson. I agree with them 100%. In addition to that, I think it's imperative that anything that the supervisors sign on to, that we be exact, that every T is crossed and every I has been dotted and every question answered clearly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Yes, sir.
Ron Mack from Jackson District. I wanted to talk to you for a minute about the item on your agenda for the BZA representative. And I'm going to be speaking as myself, I'm not reflecting views of the BZA.
I don't mean to interrupt, but just a point of information, that appointment has been made, and I'm not sure if the general public is aware.
Earlier today, I received an email from the clerk indicating that Mr. Parrish was appointed to the BZA for the remainder of Mr. Kohler's term.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh,
I just
no,
thought you
that's
should
fine.
know up front. I wasn't sure if
It's a
you were
moot point
aware.
now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron.
The judge just.
It's me. Since we're-
Hi, I'm Steph Ritter from the Wakefield District. And one thing I want to say to begin with, as each month goes by, I appreciate with greater depth the amount of knowledge you guys have to have, the amount of work that you do, and the sacrifice that you make for this county. And I am really grateful. And I say that from the BZA and the Planning Commission, where I feel like I do plenty, and you guys do 10 times that. Anyway, in thinking about the proposals about roads, I've now gone around with a tape measure, trying to measure all the roads to see if I can get an idea of what's 20 feet, what's 50 feet, and it occurred to me that there are better ways of doing this. And one thing, I think before we, Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors, make a decision about all this, it would be really helpful to have a map. And on the map to have what the width of the roads that we know in the county and where rural residential 5, rural residential 2 are, so that we can actually make an informed decision. Because I myself, I don't have the imagination and I don't have the engineering skill that Gary has in order to be able to make a decision on that. And then in terms of when I was thinking about absurd results, this is just one that sticks in my craw, which is the agricultural zoning and density ordinance. That you would assume that if you're in an agriculturally zoned area, it's one house for every 25 acres. However, as we know, if you're part of a big parcel, say it was originally 100 acres, and it's divided into 25-acre parcels, and you get to be there first. You can have 3 residences, 4 residences, and the other folks don't get any. But it has the absurd result of having density, which you never intended. So when Mr. Curry points out on Woodard Road that you have an agriculturally zoned piece of land that can have greater density than the rural 5, the absurdity goes all ways. It goes to the density ordinance for agricultural zoning. So when we think about these roads and widths and densities and rural 5, rural 2 village, I think we really need to look at it as a whole. And I for one think we could use some guidance from a planning expert. And I know there exists such a thing about, how do you get to where we want to go? Anyway, but to begin with, maps would be great. And I am so grateful to you all, really, each one of you.
Thanks, Steph.
Thanks. Thank you, Steph. Yes, ma'am.
Sheila Gressinger, Hampton District. First of all, I've had some conversations with people who have moved here, say, within the last 5 years, and they're afraid. And this is not what I want people who are moving into our county to be experiencing. They talk about, oh my gosh, Clevenger's Corner is going to hear and envelop us all and all that kind of stuff. I wish there were some kind of educational program somehow that people would understand. For one thing, I talked with a couple yesterday. I told them 20% of our county is in conservation easement. There's a huge swath of that. Our comprehensive plan is for agriculture and tourism, encouraging growth around the counties and villages. So there are ways that our mindset and our comprehensive plan and our way of life have helped us hold off any kind of deluge of builders and everything. Several years ago, I had a map and I showed that everything surrounding this county, no real roads go, they go 29, it goes from DC down to Charlottesville. You have other roads that go over to 81. You don't have anything that's really going to be a way of transporting a lot of people to live here, in my opinion. Okay, another thing, I think it's time possibly for maybe us to revisit this brochure that I think is given out at the Visitor Center. It really holds true now as it did years ago about people, and I know the realtors do it, but I think maybe just as a general point of maybe a story from the Rap News as to when you come here, here is how we live. And so when you move here, these are things that you need to be aware of to be happy living here and want to be here. The only little change I would make is at the back there's a blank space that I've highlighted, and that could be a little sticker, so you don't have to redo this whole thing. You can just put that sticker, cell service unreliable. You know?
Or names.
Some kind of little note that like, hello, this is. Then the other thing, when we were talking about the GPS and that truck going down the wrong road, a while back we had the same thing with Benvenue Road. The GPS was showing trucks coming down 211 to go down Good Grief Benvenue Road to go to Flint Hill, instead of going down, less than a mile later and go down 22 and be safe to do the whole thing. That somehow I think got resolved, and I'm not sure how. So that might be something somebody could research that may help.
We did make that no through trucks, but to do that for every country road
It's a lot of
it's
signs.
a lot.
Yeah, that might help. Anyway.
We don't like signs.
Okay. Okay, that takes care of that. Okay. I do want to go up to, I do want to address broadband. My way of thinking, I know I've heard everybody here, I am of a different opinion. And my reason is, I think some of this is Monday morning quarterbacking. There have been some healthy conversations on a listserv. I won't identify, but everybody knows what I mean. Think of it a long time ago when electricity was being introduced here. I'm sure there were people all over the place said, we don't want this. I'm fine with my candles. I'm fine with my, what are those things that have oil in them and you light them and you can burn your house down? You know, so there was that huge controversy, and I'm sure we're going through the same kind of thing now. Not in my backyard. The other thing, when this whole conversation started, to me, it's like an old house renovation. You can get an estimate in as to what it's going to be, and when you start taking something apart, there's going to be something else that's going to crop up. So you can do some estimates as far as what these things are going to cost, but it's like with my house. When I wanted to redo something, this is a funny story. I just wanted wallpaper taken down. So we had wallpaper taken down, and then there were cracks in the wall that had to be fixed. And then the rugs had been pulled up. Well, the floor had to be redone. You know, it was just one thing after. It did cost a whole lot more, but the house is absolutely wonderful now, and I'm so happy I lived through the whole thing. My husband came home one time, and there was a wooden Indian in the bathroom because it had been moved from the hallway. And he said, I said, we don't have to stay here tonight. He said, oh, thank you, God. You know, that kind of thing. So I think we're going through an uproar, and I think eventually we'll get things down. I think it's a matter of public education as far as people wanting public hearings. If you had a public hearing every time a new piece of information came up, we'd have public hearings out the yin-yang, and I don't think that's appropriate. So I wish you all well, and
Thank you.
happy February.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sheila.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Susan Babcock, Hampton District. Giving you an update on this year. It's the year of the wood dragon, which really, this is mine, but it's a period of growth, innovation, renewal, and the potential for prosperity and success. So I'm going to give you a little dragon, and just if you would focus on it, it will happen. It's very simple. And thank you for everything you do. And
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank
I'll
you.
take my rabbit down off the fridge and this will go up instead.
Time for a change.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Susan. Thank you. It's good to see you. Thanks so much. You're the best. Thanks. How are you? I love it. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you so very much. I do have my rabbit up as well.
Oh, thank you very much.
That's right.
Much appreciated.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Watch your movie.
I'm Yoko Barsky from Hampton District. This is the request I've made before, but the Highway 211, 522, and Rock Mills Road, that intersection has been pretty dangerous, and there have been some fatal accidents. I know there are 45-mile yellow sign, I guess that's advisory signs, before and after these kind of heavily traveled area. What does it take for VDOT to change that to white mandatory sign of 45 miles? I would like to have that done. If we need to, collect signatures, we'll do that. But what can we do? Can a board send a request. I wish Mr. Nesbitt was still here, but he's not. What can we do to request that?
And I'll just let you know that I'm currently chairing the Public Safety Committee, and you heard that we have a number of traffic safety related issues that VDOT is addressing, and it's just a matter of getting through them. But I noted your request a while ago. I think about it all the time. So we'll have a public safety committee meeting shortly, and we'll add it to the list. So we'll start there.
Okay.
But you can see that they end up going out and doing studies, and then there's some pushback, but I think we at least can add it to the list.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and speaking of the studies, this is another subject. The building committee has done a tremendous studies and produced the reports for the last couple of years. And now I don't know what you're going to talk about later on today at the meeting, but please don't ignore all the studies. Have you all read those studies? That's really a tremendous, great report. And they are all done by the professionals. And I know you have been talking about making another committee to put more studies, more county money. Is it really necessary? In my opinion, it's not. You already have the good basis. You gotta build on top of this basis. This is a great study, great report. Please don't throw it away, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yoko.
Good afternoon. My name is Dee Wines from the Piedmont District. I am actually one of the few probably in this room that is in favor of the proposed changes to the subdivision ordinance under sections 147 and 38 and 170, 38, item G2 on today's agenda. Personally, I'm surprised that it's taken 30 years for someone to even question these code sections in terms of right-of-ways and trying to tie development to right-of-ways in the county. Right-of-ways vary almost on every road. That could be as low as 25, it could be 200. 211 is a perfect example. That's probably a 300-foot right-of-way. But as you get closer to the park, it narrows down to 30 feet. So to rely on right-of-ways as a measure to, I don't know, say curve or impact or determine development, I don't think it's the right way to go. As has been noted before, these code sections strip away property owners' rights and also nullify whole sections of the zoning code, which I don't think is intended either. The property in question that brought this about, the Woodward Road property, is zoned RR5, and yet the owner is not able to exercise his by right power granted by the county code. This was a 30-plus acre property zoned RR5 and intended by the county to be divided into 5-acre lots, but now somehow it isn't or can't be. The property is also, it's on Woodward Road, but that's all state, also a state road 600. Although a secondary road, it is a state road and has a certain standard. In a joint meeting a couple weeks ago, a comment was made that changing the ordinance would impact neighbors' rights. I believe that neighbors' rights aren't impacted, they remain intact. The only person currently impacted is the actual owner of the property. The proposed change ultimately to these ordinances would allow the zoning ordinance to function as it intended, rather than having a default position of no whenever a property owner came in with a project or proposal. So for these reasons, I recommend approving the proposed changes to the code sections. I thank you for your time today and for everyone's comments and participation in the process.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I see a hand in the back, yes.
Good afternoon, Mary Catherine Ishii, Piedmont District. I don't have prepared remarks today, and I didn't plan to speak, so I'll attempt to be vaguely coherent here. But I had sent you an email earlier that I assume most of you received about the issue that has been brought up a few times about the fact that you have on your agenda for today further discussion about rescinding these rights-of-way provisions. As has been noted, these provisions have been in place since 1990. That's over 30 years. Presumably, when they were put in place by our very competent planning and legal staff and board of supervisors at that time, there must have been some thought that they were defensible. Defensible doesn't mean that they can't ever be challenged. We all understand that powerful development interests will challenge zoning ordinances, and sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. But if we turn tail and run for the hills just because we're worried that development interests might challenge us, then we've given up before we've even started. I would say, as you're aware, that the zoning administrator, of course, issued a recent decision declaring these ordinances void and unenforceable. That decision is being challenged before the Board of Zoning Appeals in less than a month. In that Board of Zoning Appeals hearing, a local landowner is going to be asserting that she has herself property rights that are going to be negatively impacted by removal of this provision, specifically in that case by the zoning administrator's decision, but also by things that you all are considering making changes to right here today. I'll also say that I, as simply an interested community member who's a taxpayer and who cares about the development in this county, that I've looked into this with some amount of effort, and I have not found that the conclusions arrived at in the zoning administrator's decision are at all defensible or correct themselves. Now, I know more than anybody else never like to be on the opposite side of our county staff, who we all respect and admire. However, in this instance, I don't think they are correct. These issues will be aired fully before the Board of Zoning Appeals. What you have before you now is an opinion by county staff that others in the community are not in agreement with. I don't think you have a full understanding of the complexity of these matters yet, or have you heard the other side of the case. I would suggest that the right thing to do is to let these issues be aired fully before the BZA. They're far too complex to try to address in a 2 or 3 minute public comment period. Let those issues be aired, see what they say, and then make a determination whether this ordinance ought to be changed at all, which many of us would argue it probably shouldn't be changed, or if it does need to be changed, how to do that in the most protective way rather than just throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I will say that looking at ways of changing it so that you're just imposing VDOT road standards, I would submit that every subdivision and development in Fairfax County, including Clevenger's Corners out in Prince William County or Fauquier, wherever it is, meet VDOT road standards. That is not a restriction. That may be standards, but it's not a restriction. I will also say that Rappahannock, as we know, is unique. If we try, as I've said many times before, to take the same standards that are imposed in Fairfax County and Arlington and Prince William, we will end up looking like Fairfax County and Arlington and Prince William counties. We need to think outside the box, try to find zoning provisions that keep what we want kept, and then defend those provisions. So please do not rush to judgment and start getting baked in on potential changes to this before you're even sure that it needs to be changed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Catherine. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Margaret Vaughn, Piedmont District. I'm speaking for my own opinion, not as a member of the Broadband Authority, regarding the resolution that you'll be considering later today to in opposition of HB 800 and SB 713. I want to extend my thanks to Christine Smith for drafting that resolution and preparing it for your consideration today. I'm in favor of approving her resolution, which is in opposition to those two bills. I've read the bills themselves. I've tried to parse through them what they imply. I've read the correspondence between APB and REC. It's a very convoluted situation, and I appreciate that it's very nuanced and it's difficult to find quickly the right resolution. But I do feel strongly that it would be very inappropriate for this county to have gone ahead and approved joined the Northern Shenandoah Valley Regional Commission in expecting that certain promises for the extension of fiber optic broadband into this county would be within the terms and conditions as set forth, and then to find that they have been, with no consideration of our position, changed. I don't know who's right or wrong in the change of the cost to the poles for providing fiber optic service. Whoever is wrong, it likely would be, it would be reasonable to say, well, they should share in the cost of making it right, and that might be REC, and that might cause rate changes for a lot of residents in this county that aren't going to benefit from the service. I think there are plenty of alternative sources for funding to make up for this mistake. That is available to All Points Broadband. They have also identified other federal sources of money, another VATI grant. They are in a better position to absorb that cost. Whether legally they should be held responsible or not isn't as important as the long-range impact to the county. We are in a vulnerable position. We don't have a specific contract. We're not even a third-party beneficiary to the terms that we are now attempting to follow. But I have great faith that this is one of those situations that all parties benefit if it goes through and goes through successfully. And there's an impetus to make that success happen. I don't think these two bills are going to be contributing to that success. I'd also request that if the, I realize I think SB 713 is being acted on as we speak. HB 800 will be acted on tomorrow morning. If the Board of Supervisors does vote in opposition to Ms. Smith's resolution, that be communicated as quickly as possible to our representatives so that it can be part of the discussion before HB 800 is voted on tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Margaret.
Thank you, Margaret. Maybe that's why there's no point in SB 713.
Yes, ma'am.
Carolyn Butler, Sperryville. I know many residents in Sperryville especially, and throughout the county, that cannot afford to have their electric bill increased by 50%. So I'm asking you all to make sure this does not happen. And these people are hidden people. They don't come out, they don't speak up. But I feel, since I've known them all my life, that I need to speak for them. So please do what you can. And the other thing that you've brought up is 18-wheelers. Well, there's a real problem on Old Main Street with 18-wheelers. When I came here, there was one parked on the wrong side of the road, in the road. And they do that daily. And they'll sit there for as much as a half an hour with the motor running. We have 2 huge signs up that say no through streets, but for trucks. But they are going through there. They're trying to pull across the bridge. That's what's damaged the bridge. So there needs to be enforcement or take those huge signs down. But it's happening daily, and it's a really serious problem. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm not seeing any hands in the courtroom, but we do have quite a few people on Zoom. If you're wishing to speak, please raise your Zoom hand and be recognized. And when you are, please give us your name and your district.
I'm sorry. There's diapers.
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear us?
This is Diane Bruce. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. This is Diane Bruce, and I live in Sperryville. There's several things on the agenda today that I have some thoughts about. One had to do with the school report saying that we have 728 students this year. I'd be curious to know how many students there are in Rappahannock County who attend private schools or homeschooled. There was a time recently, and I was told there were around 180 to 200 students that did not attend our schools because they use these other facilities. So we hear a lot about our declining school population. It may not be as bad as we think it is, but I'd be curious to know how many of our students go elsewhere. The second thing I'd like to comment on was the VDOT report. I may have misunderstood. It's a little hard to hear on the Zoom, but I think they said that they were going to have a 2-foot shoulder pavement on 522 from Massey's Corner to Flint Hill. And if that is correct, I'm curious to know why that should be widened. And I guess my personal interest is because I live on 522 in Sperryville, and there's hardly room for me to walk down the side of the road. I think that I'd like to see VDOT consider helping us a little bit in Sperryville so that we are not at risk of being hurt or hurting ourselves. So I don't know why you have 7 miles of 2 feet of shoulder pavement on that stretch of 522, but I think we ought to consider monitoring traffic other places, and especially around Sperryville. I'd also like to comment on the item on the agenda about the zoning amendments, the zoning and subdivision amendments regarding the 50-foot right-of-way. I know this came up because of a road in Sperryville. Seems like we're always on the map here. But that particular road is quite dangerous as it is on both ends. It's curvy, it's twisty, there are hills, and to allow much more traffic on a road like that would be dangerous. Rappahannock is not flat land like Culpeper County and Fauquier County, where the roads are flat and straight. We have curvy roads in the mountains, in the ridges. They're dangerous anyhow. So it makes sense to me why the governing body 30 years ago imposed these 50-foot right-of-way restrictions, because there are so many curves, there are so many hills, they're dangerous in their own right, and to increase traffic on many of our secondary roads would, I believe, be dangerous. So I would like to see you slow down on whatever process you're intending to take as you consider amendments to our zoning and subdivision ordinances. I'd actually like to see you have some community meetings, like roundtable discussions where we can ask questions and perhaps you can answer us. When you have public comment, like right now, I'm not going to get an answer to any of my questions. I understand that. But if you were to have community roundtable discussions in every magisterial district, I think you could help inform people and answer their questions. So I ask you to slow down, take your time, wait until this appeal to the BZA is heard, and then attend the BZA meeting and hear all of that discussion, and then decide what you're going to do. But please involve the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom? I'm not seeing any Zoom hands, so I'm going to go ahead and close public comment and take a 3-minute break. Recess.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We are moving into appointments now. And the first one is the County Community Policy and Management Team.
Yes, board members, you're aware that the CPMT includes several roles that are directed by the Code of Virginia. One of those is the VDA, Virginia Department of Health Director, or their appointee. Our district has been without a permanent director for a little while, and their representation has been strained. The current acting district director has recommended that April Acker, I think is the way you pronounce her name, be appointed to this position. In addition, the body's been without a parent representative for a little while since the most recent person resigned due to their day job responsibilities. We did receive an application, as you can see attached, from Tiffany Montague, who apparently is a teacher at RCES, or admin team at RCES. So that person has come forward to be a potential parent rep if the board's of a mind to make these two appointments, which are important because there are certain protections that the members enjoy by the Code of Virginia when they're formally appointed, and they deal with sensitive matters. So I did include a recommended action in the packet to appoint the VDH representative and the parent representative, suggesting the VDH rep serve as long as they can serve the health department, and the parent rep serve for a period of 2 years, which was a recommendation of Ms. Crooks.
Madam Chair, I move to update the slate of appointees to the CPMT to include appointing April Acker as the new Virginia Department of Health representative. She will serve at the pleasure of the board, coterminous with her position with the Virginia Department of Health. In addition, appointing Tiffany Montague, who shall serve a term of 2 years as the parent representative, and with that motion, waiving all informalities related to the appointment process that we would normally consider and follow.
I'd like to second that motion, and with particular thanks to Ms. Montague for her willingness to serve. I'm confident she'll do a wonderful job.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gail.
Right, Rappahannock Recreational Facilities Authority.
So this, there's a vacancy on your Recreational Facilities Authority due to the recent resignation of Ms. McCool, owing to her work on the school board. There was a notice placed in the newspaper for a couple weeks. We have not received any applications, so this, I guess, is a reminder to board members, anybody else, to reach out to the community, find people who might be good on this committee. Okay.
Thank you. All right, old business. Item number 2, zoning and subdivision ordinance amendment.
This is just extra food for thought for the board. During your joint meeting, there was discussion by the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors that perhaps you could tie future code language on this to road requirements, either they be private, which you have your type 1, 2, 3 roads, or public, and there is specific discussion related to the Rural Rustic Road Program. So I did include as an attachment a summary of the requirements for all of those. The Rural Rustic Road Program links over to the AASHTO Low Volume Road Design Guidelines, which when they deal with existing roads, determinations on whether an existing road should be upgraded at the time it's paved or anything like that. It goes into an analysis of risk and crash history and has there actually been problems, and so it requires a study. So I made a suggestion, maybe you want to go in that direction, and if somebody wants to do a subdivision, they have to do a study and find out if it's safe or not. You can do any other thing you want to too, but trying to keep information before the board and respond to the questions you had at your last meeting.
Madam Chair, as we always do, we heard a lot of thoughtful, well-informed comments today that address concerns on both sides of this issue, and we have, concurrent with our own board now having this as an agenda item today, Board of Zoning Appeals, consideration of an appeal of a zoning administrative determination that's tied into this. And I would just like to move on from this for today and let the BZA appeal process run its course, as several people suggested we do. I think that that is prudent and proper. And I only speak as one district representative on our board, but I would just like to move on from this if others agree.
I think it's probably best, I mean, you all have heard me say this before, but sitting on this board is a lot like erosion. And the secret to getting things across sometimes is time, pressure, and repetition. And so I would simply ask, as we've had several emails today, that this is really a land use matter, and it is of really strong public interest. And we didn't have an evening session last month, and we didn't have an evening session, or we aren't scheduled to have an evening session this month. I would like us to get back to the tradition of taking up items of greater public interest, and in particularly land use items in the evening session, because so many people do work or aren't able to attend for one reason or the other. And the evening session, as several emails you received today as well mentioned, they could not come today because it is during the 2 p.m. session. So I'm not really sure why our agendas have tracked this way. The first time I can remember doing a land use matter at the 2 p.m. session was the first Blue Rock application, where we had a public hearing at the 7 p.m. one month, and then a vote of the board at the 2 p.m. the subsequent month. I hope that the board will see after today's emails the wisdom of taking up land use matters or long-term planning or anything that is of pressing public interest at the 7 p.m. meeting.
And you make a good point, and I think we should all, when we see draft agendas circulated on that point, all do our part to identify any items that might have ended up at 2 p.m. that would be better serving the public if they're in the evening. I have no problem meeting at night. I tend to think this Monday every month is for all government service. So whether we're here at night or during the day is not a concern for me. So I think we all just have to do our part when the draft agendas come out to move things around if they need to be before the deadline for issuing the agendas.
I do think this one is slightly different because we've talked about it so many different times and in the evening with the Planning Commission, and this was just Mr. Curry added more information. So I know it's very important to be able to have conversations at the evening of time that people are home from work, but I don't think we want to get into a constant, we're not going to have serious conversations until night, because that could end up, I mean, you wouldn't have budget conversations until night. So I don't think that is what we're saying, but I do completely understand what we're hearing from the public, waiting until we hear from the BZA. I expect that'll be a well-attended meeting, either on Zoom or, do they have Zoom access?
They're working on it.
Okay. So I expect that one will be very well attended, and I look forward to hearing what they have researched and found. So I'm fine with moving on if everybody else is.
I wondered if we maybe should reorder the agenda, because I see some folks from REC have joined us, and maybe we should move on to the General Assembly update bills of interest. There seemed to be a lot of public comment on that as well.
Sure. Do you need a vote to shift the agenda around?
We do.
That would be, my motion would be to move General Assembly update item H3 to
Now?
now, yeah. Now is great.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
Just a reminder, we do need to, this would require a unanimous vote
Of course.
as an addendum item.
Well, I think that's a subject of some discussion. It would be odd to me that I would have a resolution added for what we would consider an action, which I think is really the issue, is whether we're voting to take action on these items. I think that's the real heart of the addition, whether it's a resolution or a letter. And I do think, because of feedback that I've received today, as well as I imagine y'all have received today, that there may be some letters that we may want to draft and send as a result of this discussion item today as well. So I do think that, you know, if we're going to take action on one, we should consider taking action on all. And I certainly believe that we should, in addition to the HB 800 and SB 713, also take action on the ADU and solar issues that are out there, and take a strong position on those.
So we're on G2 right now?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want to just kind of split it up and work through it?
That's what I think makes sense.
Yeah? Do you want to do the resolution first?
Or I guess we're on.
HB 800?
We're on H3.
We're on
Sorry,
H3, they got moved
Yeah.
up.
Well, I see that Lindsay and Mark from REC have joined us on Zoom, and I wondered if they had any update about what's been going on today.
The board wants to entertain them. They haven't shared with me that they want to talk, but I guess you can put them on the spot if you ask them to.
Lindsay, do you have an update for us today?
Raise your hand, I suppose.
She's raised her hand.
Thank you so much for being willing to join us.
Your connection is very poor.
No broadband in that area.
Yeah.
I'm mostly going to defer to Mark for.
Perfect.
That would make sense.
Yes, it is. I agree, which is why I'm going to defer to Mark for most of the questions.
Okay.
We are over at the General Assembly building, waiting for the doors, so it hasn't started yet progress.
Mr. Ponton?
Hey, good afternoon. So, yeah, Lindsay is in Richmond, and any of the updates that's going on down there, she will know about. If there's any specific questions that you may have that I can answer from the Rappahannock collection side, I'll be glad to do so as best I can. But you know, we're waiting on that resolution and what may happen in Richmond today, so that we'll know what the legislation decides.
Mr. Ponton, are you
Please let me know.
Are you aware of the nature of the substitute that has been identified that is being considered, which has not been posted to the legislative information system? Take that as a no.
No.
Okay.
Okay. Oh.
Lindsay does.
Yes, so the ISPs have submitted an amendment, and I don't have the language in front of me, but they did submit some language. I can tell you that the language does not take care of the cost shifting concerns that we have that would shift the cost of make ready work onto our members. So we are still planning to strongly oppose that amendment today in committee.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, do you guys want to move through this?
Do we need to add the Senate bill to your resolution?
Yeah, I think we should. I think there's a few things that we should do with the resolution. And thank you for bearing with me, because this was something Madison had taken up. And when I saw they had worked through it, I thought this was a great opportunity for us. So I would just add it's crafted for House Bill 18, that we add anytime we see House Bill 18. Also, Senate Bill 807. I'm sorry, Senate Bill 713 is additional language throughout the resolution, and there's also. I mean, I think that we should strongly oppose any legislation And we could just make the second whereas we oppose any legislation that would shift responsibility for these costs to electrical cooperatives, and phrase it that way, because it sounds like this is an evolving process, and it will be hard to keep pace with as there's offers and counters. And so we should just do this once, do it right, include the two we know are in the works, and sort of get ahead of anything else that may come down the pike.
Okay. Well, in the title, I think it's opposing legislative efforts.
Where's the?
So I think even the title already sets forth at the top what you just articulated.
Yeah, the goal here is it's total common sense that opposing legislative efforts to shift make-ready costs for broadband expansion to electric cooperatives is a bad idea and is not part of this program.
Yes.
At all.
I think it's fundamentally
And if
flawed.
you read
Yeah.
that, it's just that Gary might have to go and do surgery because it won't read correctly on the second one if you just insert an any.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
I would say, whereas we oppose any legislation that would shift responsibility for these costs to electrical companies, it would be a relatively simple change to make.
Now, if there's contemplation to pass a resolution, this resolution, I want to know the precise locations of the wording changes, and I will rate them on this. And
Sure.
then we'll make sure we all agree on them, and then you can vote.
Sure.
For a motion, it's different, but for a resolution, I want to make sure it's
Right,
exact.
no, I understand,
Lindsay
Gary.
has her hand up again, sorry.
Sorry, I think I just forgot to take it down from earlier.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
More adventures in Zoom.
Absolutely.
I didn't know you were supposed to take it down.
So I do think that at the beginning where it says, whereas House Bill 800, we should say whereas House Bill 800 and Senate Bill 713.
732.
And then for the second whereas, it should say whereas, comma, we oppose any legislation that would shift responsibility
The
for these
Rappahannock
costs.
County Board of Supervisors? Sure.
Sure.
Yes, we, the Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors, oppose any legislation that would shift, or which would shift responsibility for these costs to electrical cooperatives.
That or which, depends on the comment.
Would shift.
And then I'm toward the end where it says, now therefore be it resolved. The last two lines where it wraps should be Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors hereby expresses its written opposition to House Bill 800 and Senate Bill 713, period.
Is that your motion to adopt that?
Yes, with those changes.
I'll second your motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those, it's roll call.
I need to read back.
Yep. And Art would like to take a look.
Whereas the Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors would oppose any legislation that would shift responsibility for these costs to electrical cooperatives.
Yes, sir, that will be wonderful.
And then Christine, the last two sentences, Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors expresses its written opposition to
House Bill 800 and Senate Bill 713, period.
It adds Senate Bill 713 and takes out as introduced.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it would be as amended to the extent that it shifts stuff.
Okay. All right, we now have a roll call vote. Let's start with Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Comer.
Yes, aye.
Miss Carney. Mr. Carney. I'm trying to go full female board, sorry.
Aye.
Mr. Whitson.
Aye.
And I also.
I just wanted to thank the folks at REC, and it's so nice to be able to pick up the phone and be able to get a quick response. And I wondered if Mark Ponton, while he was here, had anything else he wanted to add today.
No, we appreciate your support, and in this endeavor, we are hoping for a good resolution. We are very much in favor of broadband to our membership, to your county. It is the goal that we want. We're not here to try and stand in the way of any of that. Our goal is to help our members and help our counties succeed and be able to reach these broadband goals that you've set aside.
Mr. Ponton, one thing I've heard from people as they've kind of thought about this is, with y'all basically being a distributor, you aren't producing electricity. Is this especially impactful to you?
It's impactful to us, of course, for the amount of polls and the fact, with the cost shifting, trying to push this off onto us. So that, in turn would make, just as you discussed, could make the electric bills higher and make many costs higher that would have to be somehow, put onto the members, and that's not what we want to do.
Have there been any ballpark figures put forward by anyone as to the kind of numbers we're talking about and what projects they cover?
As far as Rappahannock County goes, if you're, referring to the possible estimate on numbers of poles to be changed and the cost for that, yes, I have some information for you to that. It would be in the county with what we're seeing with the ISP and the attachments that they would be looking to do, about 4,800 poles is what they would be looking to attach to, and average that is being seen of poles that need to be replaced, and this is not specific necessarily just to Rappahannock, is 10 to 15%. So, that could be showing anywhere from 480 to about 730 poles, with a cost anywhere from $2.8 to $4.3 million in additional costs that would be put back on the members to, for this project.
Mr. Ponton, this is Van Carney from Stonewall Hawthorne. Thank you very much for your time. Are those poles, that figure you just cited, 10 to 15%, are those needing to be replaced because of fiber? Or are they needing to be replaced generally?
Yeah, these poles would need to be replaced because of the addition of fiber. We have a great inspection program where we routinely look at poles constantly. We're always evaluating them for, to be sure that they are in good condition to be able to support the electrical. And as they are today, they are in good condition to support the electrical. So the reason that they would need to be replaced is for the addition of the fiber optic cable for the broadband.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Ponton, it's Debbie Donahue. I understand through a conversation I had with Delegate Weber that this same situation happened about 10 years ago with cable and phone companies. I'm just wondering how that resolved itself.
I'm not 100% sure on that. I do know that the processes that are in place for cable telephone companies, for other companies that are putting fiber optic infrastructure in place today they're working well with other utilities, with other ISPs. For ourselves, we're not having these same issues that we are with this one particular company. So that's why we want to be sure that we're not pushing costs off onto our members that aren't necessary, because there is funding out there for this. It was part of the original grant applications. We don't see any reason for this to, have to go this direction. There's funding already to be able to pay for this.
And we agree with you.
Yeah, absolutely. We just, bottom line, we've been talking with REC since, let's see, I think you came in on 2021, Mr. Hewitt came here 2021, so it's been a while. And
It has been a while.
our biggest goal from the beginning was to get the citizens that did not already have high speed to their home if they wanted it. And I think
Yes.
that goal is still the same for everybody on this board.
It's still the same for us as well.
Yep.
Well, thank you both for your participation today.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Sorry.
Yeah, thank you for joining the meeting.
Yep.
Thank you. Very much appreciate it.
Hard to do from Richmond when you're.
Jeff's just as happy that they were here.
Thank you both very much.
All right. Where
And
are
Lindsay said thank you. So we're still on that agenda item. I just want to run through a couple of these other bills.
Yep.
You talked during the VDOT update about the unpaved road maintenance flexibility. And so that seems to be on a fast track. That passed through the full Senate and passed through the House Transportation Committee. And again, that provides some flexibility. So when you're sitting around the table during your secondary road planning process, you might be able to dedicate some funds to improve a gravel road as opposed to hard surface a gravel road.
Would there be limitations on the types of improvements that would?
Similar restrictions in place, similar, widths and all that stuff that probably still have to be okay.
All right.
And that goes back to that, the AASHTO low volume guidelines, which recommend 18 feet width with including 2-foot shoulders on either side.
And the road has to be already in the system.
It has to be a public road, yeah. These are, the funding for rural additions, what used to be called rural additions, is essentially gone.
But essentially, that would mean, to your point before, like roads like Holland or North Post, that folks don't want them to be paved yet have real challenges with washout.
And there are a lot of reasons why it can improve stormwater and just the geometry of the road.
Right. Yes.
Not major alignment changes, which you're not allowed to do with the rural rustic anyway. You would just kind of fit it in the space that it goes, but you can improve the section of the road and the quality of the road. And when you hard surface the road, it's really an attractive route for motorcycles, and a lot of people don't want to do that.
Right.
But you can have a better gravel road. So it might be an option for the board to consider going forward.
The only thing I
see
hear
what
the biggest concern about is speed in general if a road is paved.
Right.
So being able to have a better dirt road is a nice scenario.
So we'll see. Maybe that tool will be given to you. There has been a lot of talk about solar. There's two sets of bills. There's HB 636 and 567 that would allow somebody to appeal a local decision to the State Corporation Commission. Most local government folks think that's a bad idea. Local decisions like that should be made locally.
Good thing.
There's also Senate Bill 697. Both of the Senate bills are in the same committee meeting that the utility attachment is in this afternoon. I've been having some back and forth conversations with Mr. McCarthy at PEC, who knows the community well, about the second bill. And the language is shifting through various amendments, but still the main focus is that the locality would not be able to restrict or deny a utility solar based on size, density, et cetera, which are major components of our ordinance. Not something we would like to see adopted.
No.
Accessory dwelling units by right, the House bill failed. The Senate bill is going to be, let me say, accessory dwelling. Yeah, continued to 2025, so it failed. The Senate bill is in this same meeting this afternoon. That language has been shifting a little bit too. How far away from the main home it would need to be, et cetera, but it would shift to a by right as opposed to a special exception, which we have special exception now. There was another very odd bill that if you allowed residential in one type of zoning, you had to allow it in all types of zoning, including commercial, and it had an affordable housing component that was continued to 2025 as well. That's SB 430, thankfully. You know about the cap on supplemental basic aid. HB 702 was laid on the table narrowly. The budget amendments, or the governor's budget still has that funding in it, the House or Senate could amend it out, or inevitably, when the House and Senate budgets aren't aligned, they will go into conference, and then we'll have to see what that conference budget includes. You just spoke about SB 713 and took action on that. And the House committee meeting is tomorrow, and the other committee meeting's happening right now. And then there are 2 budget amendments relative to utility pole make ready. One in the House, one in the Senate, and they provide additional money for the 2022 VADI applications for the sole purpose of utility make ready. So if those go through, all those projects that received 2022 VADI could then go, I guess, apply, or I don't know how they would divvy that up. That's $60 million in each the House and the Senate, which presumably would be a meaningful change to solve some of these numbers that Mr. Ponton was just talking about. So those are the bills that I had flagged as being particularly interesting and something this board might be interested in.
Do we, is this the sort of thing, I mean, the solar stuff really jumps out at me, and I was just curious in terms of timing, coming out with some sort of unified voice by way of a resolution.
Yeah, VACO's already taken a stance against it. This is basically your larger urban localities who might be putting in all kinds of power-heavy, demanding uses, not have anywhere to do this, and also those same localities happen to be very pro-solar and being frustrated that the rural localities won't get on board and they should just do our solar for us. Right? They can't do it, so you should do it for them. I think it's not unreasonable to think that if the state has goals, that maybe localities should meet their share of the goal, which is whatever our power demand is in percentages. But to pick up everybody else's and cover our community is really unreasonable. So PEC is even though they're an advocate for solar, they're very sensitive to this, and VACO is against it. I don't know that a letter or resolution from the board is it'll be on a stack somewhere, and I don't know that it'll move the needle. Okay. If you could authorize me or the chair to enter public comment when it comes into their online system, that might be the quickest, easiest thing to do. And you can do that for the utility pole ones as well.
Yep.
That's what they really look at, is what's been entered into those systems.
Well, I particularly think the ADU and the solar bills are problematic, and I would reject anything along those lines that undermines our local authority. I think that's always been the stance of our county, and we should continue to say that loud and proud at every available opportunity.
And yeah, ditto, and then also to support that last bullet point, right?
Utility pole make ready?
Yeah, that body funding.
Yeah. Oh, right. So that's kind of a separate process, but
Yep.
hopefully, and I think if the House and the Senate are of similar mind on that, which we don't know yet, it's just a recommendation from some members, then it would be, does the governor agree? And so all three of them really have to come together on that. So your advocacy would be in all three directions.
Well, the VADI funding is not the only available
No,
funding
so there's
for that.
BEAD funding.
There's also BEAD, right.
Right, and so that's a lot more complicated, and I think the state wants to take the matter into their own hands, my understanding. They're best able to direct how and where VADI funding goes. BEAD is a different animal.
Right.
I think one of the conversations we had during our VACO course with Mike Chandler was that sooner or later he had heard that people were unhappy that rural counties were not playing their, giving their fair share to the solar world or the housing world or whatever. So I think when we're looking forward for the county, we've got to take that into consideration, because the state has requirements that I think are going to continue in some way or another of how much green the state has to go. And they're going to be looking for ways to reach that goal. PEC, I don't know if you all read about it, has an idea, I think it's their idea, solar basically covering parking lots. So you walk out in your, it's pouring down rain, you don't care. You walk out and it's hot, you don't care. And those are the kind of, ideas that I think make a whole lot of sense for us. I always wondered why data centers couldn't have solar panels on top of them. I mean, they're huge.
The drop in the ocean for the power they need.
Yeah, I'm not saying for them.
Yeah.
I'm just saying for the state's percentage. So I think ideas are hopefully going to help us, but it's a little worrisome for me anyway.
Well, I did think, actually, when Sheila was speaking, when I was thinking about these bills earlier today, it just made me giggle because Sheila sort of mentioned what I was thinking about is that our county is kind of like Castleton. Like, you're not going through Castleton on your way anywhere. Like, you're going to Castleton when you're going to Castleton.
Going a little
It's not a through kind of place.
And there's no stretch of road you can see for more than 150 feet.
If you're going to Castleton, you're going to the fire department for breakfast or something. And if you come to Rappahannock County, chances are you're coming to visit, make a delivery, visit the park, any of those things. And I know it is sometimes hard to get our people to understand why our county is different. But when you look at the amount of people that come to our county because we are different, I hope that a light comes on for people. Because in many parts of the world, day-to-day life is like a pressure cooker. And it is not like the kind of quality of life that we enjoy here in Rappahannock County.
Very true.
And it is important to still have places like Rappahannock County to come to because of how tough day-to-day life is for many, many people. And we saw that especially during the pandemic, I think at a heightened level, how many people came to their weekend places because it was a dog-eat-dog world out there all of a sudden, more than ever maybe. And so I know it's a struggle to get across to folks why we're different and why that's good. But I hope that people will continue to recognize and respect that.
What kind of action do we need to take? You mentioned at the outset, maybe we...
Individuals
Do you have any
can go online and provide your input, but if you want somebody to speak on behalf of the board, then somebody should be authorized to do that.
Yeah, I just think that as we review these bills and for the ones referencing ADUs and solar in particular, I would just authorize the county administrator and the chairman to work in concert to issue letters that impress upon our representatives.
Does that include, the letters include input to the online comment system?
Yes, that would be great.
Because that's what they're going to see.
Yes. That stake our claim for local authority and that we are incomparably different and we'd like to stay that way.
Good.
More words of filler one.
Yes, sir.
Yes. All right.
Think of him all the time this time of year.
Everybody good on that agenda item? You good?
Yep.
So do you want to take a, you want to vote
Oh, do we
on
need a
that?
vote?
Does that sound like a motion?
Sounds like a
I'll
motion.
second your motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Moving into board committee reports. Recreational Facilities Authority.
Oh, did we skip something?
Did I miss something?
I'm
Oh,
in
we
big
changed.
trouble.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're in
Sorry.
big trouble?
Thank you for doing that. That seems to
jumped
always help if
over-
we can do the
Yeah.
things people most come for at the beginning.
I'll get you back. I'll just.
All right. We are county construction and renovation projects.
I made the wrong click here. Okay. This report really is able to be consumed in narrative form, and you can read it and let me know if you have any questions. But as you know, there are two main projects: the historical building envelope restoration project. The jail was exterior of the jail was partially scanned on January 15th. Snow cut that short. It was actually finished on February 2nd. It's really pretty cool. I popped out here while the contractor was doing it, and they have a whiz-bang machine that shoots lasers and just creates the 3D rendering of the jail right before your eyes on an iPad. So that'll be used to create 2D drawings, which we use to create the drawings to drive change. The courthouse building expansion, there's really no change from last time we talked about this. The RFP's out. Proposals are due by the 26th of February. I've talked to several firms who are interested. I expect you will receive several proposals.
Okay.
Great.
Do need to talk about how you want to review those proposals and shortlist and presentations. My thought is that I'll make some recommendations for you to consider at your March 5th, 4th, March meeting.
Okay.
And then we'll drive action from that point on how to select a firm. The Commonwealth Attorney's Office has a very old roof that leaks, and the study that was performed in 2021 identified that it was in pretty bad shape and that it would probably need replacement in 2024. They were right.
Perfect.
So I put an informal bid out. There is funding in your budget for this sort of work. I received 2 bids that are the apparent low bidder is about 15 grand. And so that includes some other work to replace the fascia boards that we're providing and new gutters and whatnot. So I expect to be able to award that in the next couple of days.
Awesome.
EMS.
What kind of roof's on it? Standing seam?
It's a standing seam roof. Yeah, and it'll go back as a standing seam roof. The EMS sheriff's. Yes,
That's pretty good.
It is very good.
Mm-hmm.
It's
really
a no-brainer. EMS Sheriff's Garage Processing Building, remember this is in your capital budget, will be located down by the radio building. I've been working with Rick Lassard on that after talking to one of our larger companies before, came back with a ridiculous design cost. I reached out locally to see if he was interested. He said he was, and so we're working through that. It's basically a 3-bay garage. One of the bays has the door fixed, but designed in for future flexibility and structurally for it. But that area would be available for other things. One of the things that the fire and rescue department has talked about is potentially installing an extractor and dryer for turnout gear for all of the members. And the cancer risk for firefighters has been linked more to exposure to their turnout gear when they're not in a fire, when they have SCBA on, than when they're in the fire. And so riding around in trucks and all that stuff. And so this is an opportunity to try to at least provide opportunity to companies. That's not included, but we'll design that with in mind. And also the coming pharmacy rules might not require us to sub out our drugs at the hospitals anymore. And so this also might be a place where central repository where we can try to help some of the volunteer companies rather than all having to go through these complicated regulations independently. And it would store ALS 1400 as well as be available for the sheriff if they need to tear apart a car or do whatever, looking for interesting stuff. So that's happening. Next step would be to go to the ARB, which is looking like March. This is just a white clapboard building with a standing seam roof. It's a garage.
Could you let us know for certain when that's scheduled to be heard by the ARB?
We were thinking maybe February, but both Mr. Lassard and I will not be in town, so unless barring anything odd, it will be their March meeting, and I'll send you the specific
Sounds good.
date, time, all that. And just to make sure you're aware, apparently the town council makes decisions on whether fees should be exempted, and so I formally said, yeah, I'd love fees to be exempted for county projects, and so that's going to be presented at their next meeting. Not that we can't afford $100 fees, but
Principle.
Take it.
figured we could ask. So any questions on that?
No,
Thanks for the update.
Open burning.
Board talked a lot about burn bans in the past and your current ordinances, we discussed is not defensible based on how it's written. The Code of Virginia in Chapter 27, Section 98 is references in the state fire prevention code. And so that fire prevention code does allow a locality to place restriction, basically have a burn ban. And it also provides for a lot of other things. So this is a preliminary ordinance. I haven't got comments back from Art yet on it, but I did share it with Darren, and he's reviewed it and made a few changes based on his input. I know that we have a spring fire season coming up, and so I wanted to position the board potentially to put in a ban if you needed to. That was, not that you haven't done it before, but this would allow you to actually mean it, and it'd be a misdemeanor if somebody didn't do it.
When does the state ban kick in?
Middle of February, 3 months. So I can go through this draft ordinance. I can, the other thing it does too is, so Chapter 18 is the current section 18.3, which didn't do everything we needed to do, so it would remove that. It would shift Chapter 21, fire protection, from the front half of your ordinance, your code, to the back half. That was a recommendation from your code publisher, that the beginning of the code is administrative type stuff, and in the back is, I guess, general legislation, and they suggested it be moved there, but we had already adopted it, and so I put it on a note to revisit it later. So all of the first part is fireworks and doesn't change. So the open burning section strongly references the Code of Virginia as well as the Fire Prevention Code, and identifies county administration as the enforcing agency, a term defined in this Fire Prevention Code, provides for the right of entry, and basically all these sections are copying, shifting language a little bit out of the Fire Prevention Code. It does require permits for open burning, and as I told you before, my idea there was essentially to provide for a permit by rule. If you follow the rules, your permit is automatic. If you don't follow the rules, it's a notice of violation. That's the sort of thing I want to go over with Art relative to, can we make that really stick? The most important thing out of all of this is 9410A, which is the enforcing agency is empowered to prohibit open burning when atmospheric conditions or local circumstances make such fires hazardous. That's a direct copy of section 370.11 out of the statewide site fire prevention code. And if we do nothing else, that's what we want to do. Okay. And the rest is really is mimicking what is in the code, has some standard language on how close fires can be to buildings, and different types of fires, the fact that you need to be with your fire and have a fire extinguisher or hose or something, and that importantly, just because you follow this doesn't mean you shouldn't pay attention to the Code of Virginia 10.11142, which was the kind of the old section that was referenced where the state could put bans in place, and also does the February to, I guess, April burn ban, where you have to burn after 4, and you got to follow waste management requirements, and you have to follow air quality. Nothing in here takes away any of those other requirements. And then sets out the violation as set out in state code, that it is a class 1 misdemeanor.
I just wanted to make sure where it says 94-9 permits, open burning permits are deemed to be automatically issued by rule, that we're not actually issuing permits, that just if they're complying with everything, then it's considered permitted.
I think, yes. What I don't want to do is cause people to run a gauntlet and have to come in and fill an application because they want to have a little fire in their backyard or burn their stuff.
Correct.
And so you can, and localities do that. I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do that either.
And I just want them to know that if they have a fire and it's located the right distance away from their home and it's 3 feet by 3 feet or whatever and all that they're fine. But if they're not, then they're bad.
Okay. I mean, that was the way I read it. I just wanted to make sure I was understanding.
Art and I will have
what
to have more conversation. So what I would ask of the board is that if you think the concepts are right here, and I know you would probably like to have the exact wording before you authorize a public hearing. I would like some leeway to work with Art to maybe tweak it a little bit to make sure it's fully defensible, and then schedule a public hearing for your March meeting. Otherwise,
Okay.
you don't have to, but at least gets it in place during a period of time when you might need it.
Yeah, I think we should. I do too.
Definitely. What is, line 170, what is an approved container? I can't find a definition for that.
So in the definitions, it also, where not otherwise defined, you can go find the definition in the State Fire Prevention Code. I carried a couple of the definitions over here, so I have no idea. I have to go look at the Fire Prevention Code.
But, so you're now saying that approved containers is somewhere in the state code?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right.
So you need I'll put forward a motion that the county attorney and county administrator continue to refine the language that we reviewed today, and that the county administrator schedule a public hearing for our regular March meeting.
Yep.
Second. Are you done?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Thank you for getting to this so quickly.
Well, I would have rather you had the public hearing today, but.
Oh, this is great. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right. New commercial activity and related matters, Mr. Whitson.
Sure. I have asked VDOT to stripe around Harris Hall Road, both the no parking area that's on 622 at the intersection with Main Street, and then around the corner, there's a fire hydrant next to Skippy's old store that the inn now uses for crew meals. But those two areas are just frankly being ignored, and parking is, as we continue to talk about, becoming a bigger and bigger issue in town for inn employees. So hopefully that'll at least keep those areas safe for motorists. And then my next step is to meet with the general manager of the inn to get more clarity on when the 211 project will be closer to complete, because again, that's supposed to be employee parking.
So the front project is complete. That's all the parking that they asked for, and then they have a back project, which is gonna be some greenhouses. So there's not gonna be any parking there. So they'll have to come forward with some other project.
Well, that contradicts what I've been told.
They might not know what they know, or other people know.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, it'll change the conversation.
All right, new business one, we can,
Right, just to reiterate, I received an email earlier from the clerk that Mr. Parrish has been appointed, and he was appointed for the remainder of Mr. Kohler's term. So I don't know that any action on this is warranted.
thank you for that update. Building committee consideration.
There's a question during the last month, two of the citizen members reached out to me, said they wanted to have a meeting. The charter for the body states that there are a minimum of 4 members total. The board didn't appoint board members, so I think there wasn't a functioning committee at that time. I'd really not like to be in the middle of that, and so I've asked the board to appoint members or disband the committee or take some other clarifying action.
So I think that I mentioned I'd like this to be on the agenda. My original idea, which didn't really happen, was to sort of bifurcate the building committee so that the building committee could kind of take care of some of the issues dealing with the current buildings. Anyway, where we are now, what I'd personally like to see, which I think would benefit the public and efficiency, would just be to have a standing agenda item where we can go over updates, and we can kind of task things as needed in terms of, and specifically, apropos the Supreme Court guidance. When we start, if what we do is we disband the building committee and we have this standing item, as we move through this process, what I'd like to see happen is kind of what we did, and I can't even remember when it was, but several months ago when we had the constitutional officers and the judges come in and have work sessions and invite them so that we can move through this process with their opinions and their feedback, knowing that they're going to give us both probably high level and somewhat granular detail if they feel so disposed to do it. And so that's my thinking at this point, is just in terms of efficiency, we can just, I'm a firm believer that, you know, if committees are not doing anything in terms of, if they're not meeting, that they should be disbanded because government needs to be efficient and clean. So that would be my, my preference.
I'll second.
Was that,
Well, yeah, then I'll move to disband the building committee.
I just wanted to speak on behalf of the building committee, which I've had the privilege to serve on for a number of years. I think this is a profoundly bad idea. The reason that the building committee was founded in the first place was because all this was on the board's table and the board could not make any headway. And so the building committee was formed. The building committee diligently, often, frequently, in depth, reported to the board at least 3 to 4 times every year on their work, and produced volumes of work, all of which is available on board docs. Building committee meetings were often 2 hours. So if you think more people doesn't equal more time, you are taking a big bite that I don't think we have the time to deal with as a board. The building committee has had their hands tied by this board since late last spring on a direction for the courthouse because you all didn't pick a direction to move forward. We did lemonade on the lawn. We had all kinds of folks come through. We tried to answer any kind of question people had. We had a screen set up with all kinds of visuals available. We had handouts. We were there for hours, and it was a wonderful event. We took feedback from the judges and the folks from the court on September 9th, and so everyone involved in that meeting commended the building committee on their hard work and the amount of thought and detail that they had put into it. It is a very valuable working tool, and I really thank everyone involved. Whether I agreed with them or not, it led to a good finished product. And the only note that the judges had at that meeting was that a second courthouse was second courtroom was necessary. And that was not truly a correction, that was a change in their position, which the building committee was absolutely willing to work with. But we did not receive direction from this board. So when you tell me that this board is going to pick up this very important matter and carry it forward with alacrity, I have a hard time buying into that concept, because so far all we've been looking for as a building committee is direction, and we can't get that, which should be much simpler than doing the work yourself.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of disbanding the building committee, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay. And the people of Rappahannock County have just lost the one citizen oversight committee for these large and very expensive building projects.
Let the record reflect for me that when I thanked the building committee, I meant it 100%. There are no minutes for a single building committee meeting.
It was never required, and this board never asked us to keep them until it became an issue.
It's not an issue for me. It doesn't.
You're bringing it up now, so it's clearly an issue for you, Van.
No.
You're using it as a reason to justify disbanding it when you never required or requested a single time that we do that.
If I wanted to use it as a logical reason to justify why I'm doing it, I would have said that. I don't care that there are no minutes. That doesn't bug me. It's not material to me. I'm only bringing it up in the sense that, I can thank people all the livelong day, and they may or may not believe me. I have an actual idea that I put forward, and that's an idea. It has nothing to do with personalities. It has nothing to do with the work that's been done. It has nothing to do with the usefulness of the work that's been done. It has to do with looking forward. So I just wanted the record to reflect that I thanked people for it, and I wanted to. And if you go back and try to find out because of meetings, there is no way to find out what's been said, and we spend so much time in these meetings talking about documenting stuff. So part of the thing I was thinking about was that when we do things here in front of people, the board that you have said didn't give feedback includes you.
I'm on the committee.
No, I'm saying the board that didn't give feedback includes
I asked for feedback.
But it includes you.
You can repeat it all you like, Dan. Clearly we disagree, and I'd be content to leave this as it is.
Okay.
All right, moving on. Board committee reports, back to the Park Authority. Or Recreational Facilities Authority, sorry.
We had a good meeting, getting ready for the fodder stack. And
April 20th, I believe?
Yep, April 20th. And is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's April 20th. Yeah. And we have gotten to the point where we're almost, I think Becky's working with Bonnie to move the website to the county website, which is great because the newly revamped foundation, and as you guys are probably aware, like the RCRFA cannot receive money, so there's the foundation through which money can be received, which can then be, used on behalf of the RCRFA. And that website is going to be revamped as well, and they're going to be tied together with the donate button so that people can go on when they're registering, and then they can get directed and they can donate, so that we can start to really fundraise more money for the park, which is going to be great. The studies came back on some of the arsenic levels, and I think that we're going to have a really good way of kind of dealing with that. Becky's had some really great conversations with the people at Labella, is that correct? Mm-hmm. Is it Labella and DEQ, and they've got some really actionable things that we can do that don't involve, just having to spend large amounts of money removing soil and stuff. So things are looking good. Things are moving along, and I'm just always really pleased to see how much energy is in that body.
And I heard that an AED was approved to put on the park
yes,
property?
And yep, that's right. And as the county moves through that process of placing AEDs throughout the county, Janie asked if had us consider the pavilion as a site, which is a great, perfect site for an AED for sure. So thank you for bringing that up.
How does that work during the winter time? Is that unit
That's a good question.
protected, insulated, or?
Well, I imagine it would be under the pavilion, so it would be shielded from weather, but it would be cold. I don't know. It could be put in the bathroom, which is heated, but the cabinet may have a heater. I have no idea.
And how are folks going to get from the parking lot to the pavilion to get somebody to be able to use the AED?
I would assume it's when people are playing tennis or whatever, or
somebody
hiking,
drops.
and there's a crisis.
Okay, I'm just thinking about if somebody pulls in there to use it. I think the septic runs through parts of that. That's all. I don't want people driving over the septic if they're having an emergency.
The line from the tank to the field is between the parking lot and the building.
And the ambulance is going to do what the ambulance needs to do. But the AED is just the portable.
You just carry it around.
That anybody
it
that's trained
detaches
can.
from the building?
Oh, yeah, it's just in a box and you
Yeah.
pull it out. And
It just needs like a place to stay out of the weather, and I think it needs power.
Batteries.
There's batteries.
They're
No, it
batteries.
doesn't have a power backup, or?
No, I don't
No.
think so.
They last a long time.
Like 5 years. But what I was told was high heat, cold, in my car, it's fine.
Huh.
The batteries may die faster, that I don't know, but it doesn't care what the temperature is.
They're pretty solid.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The one thing that I know people are starting to wonder is if we're going to do AEDs or support AEDs in the community, what AED is the brand? Because
Right.
people are really interested in putting them in.
Standardizing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which makes sense.
I know that's something that Darren has been looking into.
Oh, good. Public Safety Committee.
We haven't met yet. That's coming up.
Your normal meeting would have been March 5th. We'll reschedule that to a different day because March 5th will be the second meeting for the clearing.
Okay.
Planning Commission update.
We met and y'all were there.
We were. It was a good meeting. Fire Levy Board.
Bless you.
Fire levy will meet on the 31st.
Is that what it is?
Met.
So we
already met.
met.
Oh, met on the
and,
31st.
Yeah, we.
That's February already.
So we met and we had a good discussion about, well, first we had our organizational meeting and re-elected Chairman Stenner and Jason Brady as the vice chair. And we welcomed a new member onto the board, Dennis Kelly and Richie Burke, and 2 members. And we had a discussion about a chart of accounts that in this larger discussion of just kind of getting all on the same page apropos the services agreement, that requires certain things be done by the association in regard to companies, kind of getting all those pieces pulled together. So policies and procedures and a chart of accounts. If you go in and read section 42 of the services agreement, it kind of lays out what the responsibilities of the association apropos transparency and sort of broad policies and procedures that companies are kind of supposed to comply with. So there's just a general discussion about that. And then we, in preparation for the next meeting, which I believe is
27th.
the 27th of February, which unfortunately I will not be able to be there.
And that's the bill reviews, and that message has already gone out to the companies, and they're
Yep.
already coming in.
Yep.
And so that will be noticed 2 weeks in advance, which will be next Tuesday.
I just hope and this is based on some of the things that we've talked about previously, and this idea of unifying the way that companies do things, that in the process of having those discussions, we're not creating more work for volunteers that frankly, their time would be better spent volunteering for what they signed on for, fire and rescue, and not figuring out how to bookkeep according to county standards. I mean, I think it's important to have the information, but I do hope we don't make it overly burdensome.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
They all have bookkeepers now paid through the Fire Levy
I'm not
Board?
sure if they all do. I know that there was a recommendation that went to the association to that end. I've not heard anything back from the association.
They do not. Company one I know does not have a big.
Yeah. So I don't know if you will ever
Kay
hear from
would-
the association.
Kay appreciates that. I bet it's Kay, isn't it? Kay's your bookkeeper, or she does that, and she does all kinds of other
She
stuff.
has some pretty strong opinions about what software she uses too.
Gotcha. All right, I think that was it. Treasurer's reports,
They're there.
cash flow graph still.
There's a large note that, let's see.
Is that at the end? No. The document that Bonnie, I assume, shared with us.
Oh, so there was a question regarding the reservation of funds and the fund balance, and Bonnie made a note here that that's all been provided. There is an attachment that provides some from the audit, and then a follow-on page that helps identify what this board has reserved different funds for.
Looked good and was much appreciated.
Yep. Just keep it coming. Is there any other meals and lodging, probably?
I can never keep track of what quarter ends when, but just remember these revenues are not necessarily aligned with the fiscal year, and they're accrued back. This should represent when they were received. So we're not seeing huge increases like we used to in the past. We've kind of settled in. This, the most recent bar is a little higher than the old one, in this case the other way around, so we're kind of about the same. And we're not seeing giant changes.
Nope.
Same with sales tax, not seeing giant changes.
Any other discussion on that agenda item?
When do we typically learn from Treasurer Nick regarding delinquent tax payments, since those are due in early December?
She has an annual report that she files, which wasn't too many months ago. But that's a constant effort for her. She's constantly reviewing that. So, it'd have to be so many years. I'd have to go back to her, but
I guess what I mean is, since tax bills went out in December, or went out in the fall, we're due in December at some point, I guess.
So each month the data is updated in your revenue report, and you can review that, and you can see for real property tax, the current year, you can see the current amount collected. And then all these rows above it are past year collections. So there's constantly past year collections overdue that are happening. And then if you add those all up together, together with the in years, where we would benchmark that against what we've forecasted, and it will take through the year to get there, hopefully.
Yeah, okay.
Same goes for personal property tax.
Are we, I've talked to a few people about, well, more than a few people, I talk all the time about diversification of revenue. Are we safely now at a point where we can say, based on trends on meals and lodging and sales tax revenue, that aggregate value of non-property tax revenue is around 10% of our property tax revenue realization?
I don't know offhand. Your sales tax about $1 million.
Another 700, or no,
And then the meals and lodging is
it's about $1.5 million, and real property tax revenue is about, I guess it's around 10%.
250. It's 3, 6, 450, 500 maybe. So 1.5 million maybe.
And then of 15 or 14 point. So that's about right.
Those can be highly variable numbers based on conditions outside of our control.
No, but the trend has been lock solid for a while. That is, it used to be, but if you took sales and meals and lodging tax revenue, that total was not even close to 5%.
Yeah, your real estate is, say 11, 12.
Yeah, you're right. We have
Under 15.
It's been, yeah.
Post-COVID, I think.
It's been locked in for a while.
Yeah.
But gas prices have also not gotten terrible. And my memory, this was before my time on the board, my memory is that our economy for tourism really tanked at one point, and that was driven by rising gas prices. People just simply weren't traveling because they couldn't afford it. And I think it's dangerous to. We have been very, depending on how you want to look at it, very fortunate, blessed, or talented in predicting these revenues the last few years in light of all of the things going on in the world around us, but they are highly variable revenue streams.
Yeah, there aren't many revenue streams counties can access. So the real estate, personal property, the sales tax, meals and lodging tax are main ones. Many localities also have B-POL. We've talked about that here, and juices and squeezes and all that. And I don't expect that will change anytime soon. And so I doubt your ratios will change much. But if there's a major downturn in the economy, it could, those meals and lodging could change.
Projections on meals and lodging and sales tax revenue have been pretty accurate for
Yeah, I don't have that 12-month moving total, but that graph really tells the story for sales tax, where it was going up, 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 and now we've really leveled off. And so we're just not seeing that increase anymore. Now, policy change at the state, which the governor had been talking about, potentially excluding some items from sales tax, including other items from sales tax, services, for example, that would be a major input and a change to our revenue. But we're not really sure what change it would be. It would be interesting.
All right, we're good. Moving on to legal matters.
There's not a lot to report here. Capital appeal still has not been taken up by the Supreme Court. The Williams appeal on it has not been taken up by the appeals court. There was a new lawsuit filed on Friday, apparently. That was in a newspaper, online newspaper article today, and Ms. Struckman emailed it to me today, and I passed it to the board. I'll send it to Fay Corp tomorrow, which is, I guess, Flint Hill Volunteer Fire Company version 2. Caparucio is still kind of mired. The partition suit between the brother and sister. Apparently the sister won, but the brother has now filed all kinds of documents in odd formats with the court that we're not really sure what the court's going to do with them.
Is he representing himself?
He had a counsel, fired counsel, had different counsel, fired that counsel, so he's pro se right now. And we think the sister has control, but we're not really sure, and we're trying to let the court sort that out. She intends to restore the site when and if she has clear control over the property.
Thank you. Building permit, report, zoning, all that's there. Anything standing out?
No, I did add there's another addendum, there's no action, added this Rap Connect transportation service, was information that was shared with the board. It's pretty cool. This is grant funding that the region went after to help our citizens get rides to doctors' offices and things like that, and so hopefully it will be successful. I'm sure the newspaper will share that information. A lot of these resources are in place now. This bolsters what they're able to do by having better access to vehicles and whatnot.
Okay.
All right, moving on to matters presented by the board. Ms. Comer?
I would just like, I wish everyone was still here to hear it. Early's Carpet had a ribbon cutting on Friday, and as being a generational staple in this county, and for those of you who don't know, they happen to be the county's 7th largest employer behind the county, the school, the inn, so they're 7th behind some pretty large employers. It was really very exciting to see all the people come out and celebrate them. So if you see Mrs. Early or her daughter or son-in-law, I just encourage everyone to congratulate them and thank them for being such an integral part of our community.
And I want to thank staff. That's something, you didn't hear anything about that development project. They wanted to do it. They applied as they were supposed to, designed it, submitted plans, reviewed, approved, developed, done.
Amen.
Copy, paste, copy, paste.
Whatever happened to that gentleman that showed up a few months ago in made a public comment about?
Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
About, I've been seeking quotes from surveyors, and just over the last couple of days have Mr. Clark has said that he's willing to do it as long as we don't need it right away, and I think that would be, his knowledge of the community would be helpful, so I just sent him all of the stuff, I think yesterday or first thing this morning.
Sounds good.
I did share it also with another company, but they said, hey, we're really busy, I don't know if we want to do this.
Ms. Smith?
I don't have anything.
Mr. Whitson? Mr. Carney? And I don't either.
Motion to adjourn.
I think it's a.
Let's not do that, yeah.
Yeah,
let's-
this would be a motion to continue. Do you have a address and time?
Oh,
You mean for Saturday?
Yes.
I need the
February
address,
10th.
9 a.m.
Oh, right.
So.
At the base.
Before a motion to continue our meeting
Yeah,
to
sorry.
9 a.m.
I'll make a motion to.
Let me get the address, just to make sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's 1-3 something,
Lee Highway.
a long number.
I got it here.
Not-
Good.
So I'll make a motion to consider continuing the meeting to February 10th at 9 at 9 a.m. at the base in Sperryville, the address being 11669 Lee Highway, Sperryville, Virginia.
You have a motion?
Yep.
I have a second.
What's the anticipated amount of time on Saturday? Is there an agenda?
The agenda will be going out tomorrow, after I knew this was continued. And I think the absolute drop dead end of day is 4, but I expect it will be driven by the board.
Yeah, let's not drop dead.
Yeah.
No, there's no ED.
Amen.
Not fun.
Amen.
Don't recommend.
Don't do
0
it.
stars.
We have a motion and a second. There's no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. So you're gonna run.
Yeah,
Good study.